What's going on, everybody? It's the TheAireaidLord. Welcome back to a review video. I don't remember the last time I reviewed a game for my channel. It must have been a long time ago. Probably any release from 2014. Probably Far Cry 4, or a game that I had an opportunity to sit down and kind of give my full attention to, my full thoughts. Nowadays, I'll only review games that I can kind of really sit down and analyze them. Like a game that I spend a lot of time with. That's really the games that I take the time to review. And Arkham Knight fits the bill. Arkham Knight, I bought about a month ago. It's kind of crazy that already a month ago this game came out. It is the final game in the Batman trilogy from Rocksteady. Arkham Asylum came out in 2009. I did not play that entry. Perhaps one day I will. I mean, it's kind of pointless now, considering I already know what happens in the games that come after it. But from all accounts, people have kind of said that Arkham Asylum, the story is kind of standalone. I could be wrong by saying that, but Arkham City and Arkham Knight, in my opinion, seem to have direct ties. The events of that game, more of the events tied in to each other. Unless there was some information about Jason Todd, the original Robin, and some of that plot stuff, which we'll get to in this video. I will warn everybody who's watching this, there might be some spoilers that you will listen to in this video. I will warn you ahead of time, like if I'm going to give a major plot spoiler, I'll announce what I'm going to say, and then you can skip a few seconds ahead. I'm going to try to be brief with the spoilers, but I kind of do have to mention them because some of my gripes with the game do concern the plot. So I kind of want to discuss it. And rather than I know some YouTubers make two videos, one spoiler free, but I kind of just want to do one video here. All the points will flow together, and it makes it much easier for the purpose of you guys watching the video. Okay, so Batman Arkham Knight, the biggest change I think everyone noticed for this game is that the Batmobile is in this game. You get to drive the Batmobile. The game is structured so that there's lots of roads included in the game. Not only for the AI, there's tanks, unmanned tanks. Batman doesn't kill, so they're drones, unmanned drones, and you've got different kinds of drones. You've got basic drones. You've got, heavy drones, you got drones with lock-on missiles, you got these, like APC batteries that drop from the sky and are a bit stronger. Then you've got the Cobra tanks, which are the ginormous, overpowered mecha tanks that the only way you can kill them is by circling around and shooting them from behind. They can kill you in like 2 hits, and they were pissing me off during my playthrough. And then you've got like the boss vehicles that occur when you have boss fights in the game. But those are the new thing. In this game, it's new because in Arkham City, I don't think they avoided. There were streets in that game, but they avoided the kind of street layout, particularly because it was Arkham City. It was like an insane asylum, a city made for prisoners, and it was kind of that containment. But this game takes place in the city of Gotham. A closed-off section of the city, which is nice because that's kind of where I think the game needed to take place, because Arkham Asylum, it took place in the asylum. Arkham City, a portion of Gotham, which was like this industrial city which was made just for prisoners. And then this game takes place in a portion of Gotham. You can see on the horizon the rest of Gotham, but I think this is just a kind of militarized, broken, like a section of Gotham that was kind of overrun. The plot of this game is the very simplistic plot of this game is that Scarecrow is the main villain. The first scene of this game is very strange because you play as a first-person perspective cop, and this was shown at E3 a week or two before the game came out at E3. There was footage of this where a police officer from Gotham goes to a diner and he sees Scarecrow in the back, and he thinks it's just a guy smoking, and so he goes over and tells him to stop, and then he sprays him with fear gas, and then he unleashes this whole plan, and then everything goes to shit. That's basically the introduction of this game. Everything goes to shit because of Scarecrow, and Scarecrow is also secretly working with the Arkham Knight, which the game is named after. Now, the Arkham Knight is the secondary villain in this game. For all intents and purposes, I mean, the game, to be fair, does a pretty decent job of balancing Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight as the dual villains. Similar to how Arkham City had Joker and Hugo Strange, those were the two main villains of the second game. I mean, you could argue and say Ra's al Ghul was kind of one of the villains behind the scenes, and there were some others that popped up here and there, Penguin for a period of time. But the overall villains of the game in the second game were Hugo Strange and the Joker, and both, you know, obviously spoiler alert, but I'm assuming people who have played the third game and are watching a review for the third game know the story of the previous games. Spoiler alert, but obviously Hugo Strange and the Joker die. That is made quite apparent in the very beginning of Arkham Knight. The game starts with the Joker being cremated, and that leads into kind of where the plot of this game occurs, because Gotham is... It's almost like the end of Batman... I almost said Batman Arkham City. The movies, the Chris Nolan movies, you know, at the end of The Dark Knight where, you know, Joker is apprehended and there's that 8 years of peace. It's peacetime before the whole plot of Dark Knight Rises occurs. That's kind of the vibe I got from this game, where, oh, you know, Joker was cremated, Hugo Strange was stopped, you know, it's peacetime. Oh no, Scarecrow is the new villain, which in the Nolan movie, Scarecrow was such a pussy villain. In this game, he's a reckoning force. Scarecrow is definitely a reckoning force. I don't know if Scarecrow was in Arkham City. I don't remember him being in Arkham City, but yeah, I think that was, you know, I don't know if he was, but for this game it was like, oh, you know, they didn't address Scarecrow in Arkham City, so, you know, put him in this game. So, for me, I didn't know much about Scarecrow in the way Rocksteady was going to form him, so I wasn't prepared for him to be this badass kind of ruthless villain and poisoning the city of Gotham, but he ended up doing a pretty good job. Him and the Arkham Knight did a decent job. Now, I'll talk a bit about the Arkham Knight, some things I didn't like about him once you get further into the game. But I'll talk about the gameplay mechanics a bit. As I said, the Batmobile is one of the brand new mechanics. It handles very well. I'll talk from a gameplay perspective. It handles well. It handles I know people might say this is controversial, but I think it handles a little bit better than some vehicles in GTA 5. I do. I mean, I know from GTA 4 to 5 they made the driving a lot smoother, but Arkham Knight's Batmobile handles pretty well. And I mean, it is difficult to maneuver when you're doing some of the Riddler's challenges that involve racing, which pissed me off during this game. But if you hit L2 at any time, the Batmobile goes into this weapon mode. So the Batmobile can move from left to right. So if you ever get to the point where you're driving in the wrong direction or you have to brake steadily, hitting L2 stops the Batmobile dead in its tracks, and you can kind of adjust from side to side. That's also the way you fight in this game. When you take on other drones and tanks, you have to hold L2 so that you can use the Gatling gun, which is just a machine gun, and then there's also the 60mm cannon. It takes 1 or 2 shots for most vehicles. Some take more, but for the most part it'll take 2. So the Batmobile, again, I was impressed because the Batmobile was not in the previous 2 Arkham games, you know, Asylum or City. And for it to handle so well in this game, for this being the first time, this is the first next-gen Arkham game, and it's also the first time that a car, like a drivable vehicle for Batman, has been in the game. It worked well. The other thing I have to give Rocksteady credit for is that there's a nice balance between being the Batman and also being the Batman inside the Batmobile, because you could just say, well, I could just drive around Gotham, you know, I don't need to, you know, I don't need to use the grapple hook and fly across the sky as Batman, you know, doing dives and flying around. You know, that was all cool, that was cool to do, but now I've got this car, I can just drive everywhere. Well, in my opinion, using the grapple hook actually allows you to get around the city faster, especially if you upgrade the grapple hook. I have to say, I don't know if anyone remembers, but in the previous Batman games, the grapple hook, and well, in the second one, the grapple hook, if you pressed R1, you would slowly just reach a ledge. Okay? In the second game, if you did all of these, there were like virtual reality challenges where you had to like fly through these rings. If you beat all of those, you would get the grapple hook level 2. And if you pressed X twice or A twice, you would get a little bit of a speed boost. And it was only a slight speed boost, but it would basically let you kind of, you know, lift off of buildings kind of quick. In this game, you can upgrade the grapple hook 5 times, okay? When you start this game, you already have the grapple hook level 2. Once you learn to do the fear takedown, you automatically get level 3. And then through upgrading your abilities, you can upgrade it to 4 and 5. And once you hit 5, if you rapidly press X on the PS4 controller, and your guy hits a, like, you fucking launch. You're like a torpedo shooting through the sky. And it's just like, I kind of wish that was in Arkham City, because in Arkham City, I kind of, you know, using the grapple hook in that game, it just, I kind of felt like, you know, I was slow, especially since half of Arkham City you play as Catwoman, and so she is kind of slow using her whip to, you know, slowly jump up buildings and stuff. But in this game, you're soaring through the freaking sky. Whether you can press X to double eject from the car to shoot that, you know, the grapple hook, like I said, lots of maneuverability in this game. Batman is definitely at his finest, and I think that's what this game is going for, because Batman seems to be the pimp master in all categories. And what I mean by that is that Batman has so many gadgets, okay? I just need to say, he has so many gadgets to the point where some of them are unnecessary, alright? Like, I'm going to tell you, the line launcher and the remote control Batarang, those two weapons, well, not weapons, gadgets, there's only like 2 or 3 segments in the game where you ever use them, okay? I think for the line launcher, there's only one sequence in the entire game. I think it's when you're first confronting Penguin that you use it. And then the remote control Batarang, you use it to open one door, and then there are a couple of Riddler challenges where you need it to like identify a guy who has a collar on. But that's it. The thing is, in the second game, I remember I had to use the remote control Batarang a lot to, you know, hit switches and, you know, make it go around in a circle and follow this specific pattern. I remember it was so difficult to use that stupid thing to, you know, and the controls were inverted. Oh, it was a freaking torturous mess. And that's why I thought it was going to be in this game, but there was only one sequence where you had to hit a button with it. So at least Rocksteady edited out the parts that I didn't like. But there are so many gadgets, and new gadgets too. There's the Disruptor, which is a weapon that Nightwing gives you, and you shoot it at guns, either turrets or assault rifles that militia have, and it jams the gun, so when they try to fire, it doesn't work. So it gives you an extra chance to beat them up and kind of get the upper hand in combat. What else is there? There's the remote electrical charge makes a return, but at the very end of the game, however, I heard that there's a glitch where you can go to the Gotham Police Department and steal it earlier in the game. I didn't know that, but yeah. You got the Bat Claw, which is used different. In this game, you can use it to rip guns out of people's hands. And then there's the explosive gel makes a return. You got the remote control Batmobile, which is that the segments with the Batmobile, I think, are the puzzle sequence that occupy a majority of this game. You're going to be using the cable. Like, that you shoot this cable out of the Batmobile and you can pull objects down to break them, or you can latch onto them so the Batmobile can drive up surfaces like at an angle it's not supposed to. Most of the puzzles in this game include the Batmobile, and that's why I mentioned that some of the gadgets that Batman has are I can't even say it. They're irrelevant. I'll just say that as a synonym. A lot of them are irrelevant. I mentioned the Batarang, the remote control one, because the regular Batarang, you can upgrade it, and you use it more as like a combat item. You can use it, throw multiple Batarangs, and knock people down, and knock them out, stuff like that. There's a whole upgrade branch for it. The remote control one, which you use to get puzzles, not really used at all. The line launcher, that's used like freaking once in the game. Again, it's the Batmobile. You'll be doing a majority using the Batmobile, using Batman, using Batman controlling the Batmobile while he's not in it to open doors and raise things. That's the majority of the gameplay structure. At least the gist that I got from playing the whole game start to finish that you get in this game. Okay? Talking about the combat is pretty much the exact same. You've got some of the same enemies. You've got the regular enemies that just throw punches. You've got enemies with weapons like clubs and swords, like there's ninjas. You've got the brutes, the big fat guys where you have to stun them and then you freaking punch them like a punching bag until you knock them out. You got brutes that have shields. You got regular enemies that have riot shields where you have to stun them, then jump on them. I don't like those kind of enemies. It adds diversity and it makes them harder, the combat situations, because you can't just chain your attacks, just pressing square, 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 counter, square. If all the enemies just had their fists, then it would be simple. But because some of the enemies have electricity surrounding them, so you have to shoot them with your electrical charge or stun them in order to be able to punch them. There are some paramedics that are able to attack you, but they can also revive the guys that you knock out, which adds another difficulty layer. Some of the brutes have swords, some of the brutes have shields, some of the brutes even attack you with like their electric fists. Some of these enemies were in Arkham City. I don't know how many are new. Again, I don't know if the ninjas are new. I know the brutes. Another version of the brutes were in the second game. I know the riot shields and the electric rods, the cattle rods. I know those were in the second game too. So most of the combat stuff is the same. The one new combat element is the fear takedown, which is actually my favorite ability in this game. The fear takedown. When you have your combo meter filled, and this is also a new feature of the game, you have a combo meter, and as it fills up, you're able to do any number of special abilities. You could throw multiple explosive gels and knock out enemies. You could shoot the electric charge and stun multiple enemies. You could, there's a bunch. You could throw a bunch of batarangs and knock out a whole bunch of people. The way I use it the most is the fear takedown, where you knock out a guy, and then the game goes into slow motion, and you can choose your target, then knock out another guy, and then it goes into slow motion. Then you can upgrade that a maximum of 5 times, so you can take out 5 guys in succession, and they're knocked out permanently. And it's ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous, and you need to get combo meters and take down enemies with stealth in order to build it up. But you feel like a badass. This is the most badass I felt with Batman in a long time. So I think the fear takedown was an excellent decision in terms of the gameplay. So definitely kudos to Rocksteady for that. What are some other segments? I'm trying to think in the game. There's 3 islands in the game that are all connected by bridges. There's different levels in the game where you have to lower bridges to, obviously not all of the areas are unlocked. Actually, technically all of the areas are unlocked in the game. However, you can't bring the Batmobile there until you lower the bridges and progress further in the main story. So you can still fly there as Batman and take down some of the side missions, which I'll get to, but for the most part, that's the way the islands go. In terms of the missions in this game, it's broken up between the major villains. So each major villain has a specific set of side content you're doing. So Penguin has these robberies of guns that he's trying to steal, and you and Nightwing track these vans to where his warehouses are, and you have to take down like 5 of them before you take down Penguin himself and throw him in jail. Harvey Dent, or Two-Face, is trying to rob banks, so you got to take down his crew. Then when you beat all of the bank segments, you throw Harvey Dent in jail. The Riddler is back in this game. He's holding Catwoman, who played a major role in the second game. She doesn't really play much of a role at all in this game. She's only there for the Riddler segments, and then when you free her, she just goes away. But yeah, there's Riddler challenges. There's also Riddler trophies, which I'll get to that in a second, which I think is ridiculous. They were in the second game, but they're a little different in this game, and I'll explain why in a minute. But yeah, there's basically the side missions. Then you have the basic side missions, like, oh, there's militia checkpoints where there's just a bunch of guys you got to beat up. You've got explosive mines, which you can hack. You have to defend the mine from waves of tanks, and then you got to blow it up. So yeah, missions specific to the Batmobile. There's investigation missions where there's killers, people killing people, and you've got to analyze it. And you've got to go through a series of clues and investigations. Stuff that you've seen in the Arkham City. I'll bring it back to Arkham City just because that's a familiar title that a lot of people know. So yeah, basically the missions, and it's pretty clear cut. You hold right on the D-pad and you see your percent completion at the bottom, and then you see the side missions, main stories at the top. Very well organized. Arkham City, I had a tough time figuring out exactly what my percent completion was. It was kind of vague as to what mission, the side mission wheel was very confusing, and I kind of just ended up doing stuff randomly. I don't even think I did a majority of the side content in Arkham City. There were a lot of villains I just didn't defeat in that game. But in this game, I have defeated every single villain except Riddler. And the reason why is because in order to defeat the Riddler, you need to find all 250 Riddler trophies, or you have to beat all of his challenges that are these little puzzles hidden throughout the city. I thought it was optional content, but apparently, in order to get the final ending of this game, there's 3 different endings to this game. One ending is just beating the main story. The second ending is beating the main story and locking up a majority of the criminals except one. You can choose one to leave behind. The third ending of the game is beating the main story and then locking up all of the criminals. So getting 100% game completion, leaving no stone unturned. And this was a decision by Rocksteady because this is the final Batman game. And the story of Batman concludes, and if the story of Batman's concluding, you need to complete the game to 100%, which is a very interesting concept for the game. On the one hand, it eliminates any replayability because the game ends and you've done everything there is to do once you've done all of the little Riddler things. But at the same time, it adds more gameplay, and it makes you feel like there's a reason to do the gameplay behind, instead of just hunting for achievements or trophies, there's an added purpose to actually doing the content that's, side content that people always says, adds, hours to the main story that's there for you to do, So the side content it can't even really be considered side because it's the whole Batman story of locking up all these criminals. It's hilarious. When you lock up the main criminals, you throw them all in the same freaking cell. So you've got Harvey Dent, Penguin, freaking this crazy guy with a knife. You've got Firefly, even Scarecrow when you beat him. Everyone's just thrown in this freaking cell. It's like, holy crap. How are these major, Batman villains, getting along in this cell? It's pretty hilarious. But anyway, so that's the game. So overall, I enjoyed the game. I did enjoy it. It kept me going. The side content is spaced out appropriately. Like, they don't let you do all of the side content at once. You have to beat a certain number of main story missions, then more side content becomes available. For example, you can't destroy all of the mines until you beat a certain number of main story missions. You can only defuse like 3 or 4 mines on each island, and it'll have like a big locked, like it'll be like a stop sign, like a don't do anymore, because you have to progress more in the story for those to be available. Like, there's a lot more than you think. So progressing in the story keeps all, like, you're kind of doing a little bit of side content here, a little bit of side content here, then some main story, a little bit of side content here, a little bit of side content here, then the main story. It keeps, like, the gameplay is balanced, and that's, I think it's interesting because you're not getting burnt out doing too much side content, you're not burnt out just doing the main story all the time. You have enough diversity, and the game is forcing that diversity, which drives the experience, which I think is very successful. So I definitely have to give the game props in that respect. Now, is the game a rehash of the second one? I don't think so, because the story's different. You got the Batmobile, which, again, I said is a main gameplay mechanic. It's used in almost every single mission. And again, this is a new city, new environment. It is obviously the dark, always raining, stormy, Gotham kind of depressed atmosphere that we were familiar with from previous games. But it still adds enough content that I feel it's enjoyable. Now, with the brief time that I have left, I just want to talk about some story elements that were kind of hit or miss. There will be some spoilers, so let me just preface that. So the remainder of this video will be spoilers, and then I'll give the game a score at the very end, okay? So, for the Arkham Knight, alright? The identity of the Arkham Knight. Jason Todd, the original Robin, everyone who played this game was like, oh, I knew from the start that it was Jason Todd. The clues were obvious. Well, I guess I don't know enough of the Batman lore from the early Jason Todd stuff. There were some allusions to it with Joker, but I overall didn't know. I didn't know that he was, Jason Todd. And then it was only at the very end I knew. Okay? So that was strange. Also, the very end of this game is very strange. There's no final boss battle, okay? The end of Arkham City, you fight Clayface. You fight Solomon Grundy in the middle of the game. There are really no notable boss battles in Arkham Knight. You fight the Arkham Knight's tank, which, okay, I guess that's cool. You fight his tank, but there aren't many boss battles in this game. There's obviously the typical Batman, rooms that are full of guys with guns, and you have to manipulate the environment to take them all out, but there's not many boss battles. There's the Riddler boss battle, which you can't do until you do all the frickin' trophies, but in terms of notable bosses, there are none, really, in this game, except for these these super tanks that you defeat with the Batmobile. And I just feel like the bosses in the second game were a lot more enjoyable and a lot more kind of fleshed out, And there's no final boss at the end of this game. Basically, as a spoiler, Batman kind of just turns himself over to Scarecrow, and then the Arkham Knight saves him at the end. And it's kind of like, but the Arkham Knight saves him at the end because, Batman makes nice with him and tries to convince him that he wasn't responsible for for Joker torturing him. And then, so, Arkham Knight shows up at the end of the game, saves Batman, then just runs away. Like, they don't talk, they don't make up, they don't kind of talk about how he was the main villain of the game and how he had caused Batman so much suffering and he didn't apologize, he just kind of ran off. Also, one of the plot elements in this game, having to do with the Joker, is really kind of confusing how it ends. And let me explain what I'm talking about. The general idea of this game is that Joker's dead. There is no question whatsoever. Joker is 100% dead in this game. He does not make an appearance in Arkham Knight. There is no Joker in Arkham Knight. However, the Joker appears as a Flash not flashback, hallucination of Bruce Wayne, of the Batman, because his blood is still inside Bruce Wayne from, there's the cutscene in Arkham City where Joker puts his blood into Batman, because at the time Joker's blood was infected, and that was the whole plot with getting the cure from Mr. Freeze. You take the cure so you don't die. Obviously Joker didn't, and he died. But I guess the idea is that Joker's blood is still inside you. So, because of that, you are slowly becoming him. You and Robin in the game lock up like 5 or 6 people who all have Joker's blood, and some of them are female, male, old, and they're all people that are slowly turning into the Joker in different ways. And there's this one stage in the game where you have to apprehend them all. It's it is kind of a funny sequence with some of them, but at the very end of this sequence, you discover that you're the last Batman Joker embodiment. Basically, by the end of this process, you will turn into Joker. And there's a cutscene at the end of the game where it kind of foreshadows that, but there's this whole psychedelic, it's very weird, okay? Batman goes to Scarecrow to turn himself over so that he can rescue Robin and Gordon, okay? And Scarecrow wants to unmask Batman so he can reveal him to the public and ruin his identity and make him really afraid and basically ruin his whole mystique and his personality and his whole, crime-fighting persona, okay? Basically, there's 2 different plots going on. There's Batman fighting off this Joker blood, basically fighting him becoming the Joker, and then there's also Batman trying to take down Scarecrow and basically, put an end to his whole freaking, his whole game. And Scarecrow's, mission is to spread fear gas in Gotham and, poison the whole city. And he does this in the game. He does accomplish this during the middle of the game. However, through working with Poison Ivy, you're able to stop it. And then the poison is gone for the rest of the game. And then the goals of Scarecrow are very unclear. From that point on, it seems like he just wants to get revenge on the Batman and just unmask him and ruin his life. Once his big plan with the toxins fail. The Arkham Knight, being Jason Todd, his whole plot was to get revenge at Batman for the things that the Joker did to him. And, they kind of make up during the semi-boss fight that you have with the Arkham Knight. And there's no boss fight with Scarecrow, so there's just the problem I have with this game, and I know I just spoiled a lot of story stuff, and I said a lot of story elements. I did say at the beginning of the video there'd be story stuff, and I did forewarn you with these past couple of minutes, so again, I apologize, but the main problem with this game is that there's, at the very end of the game, there's all these different plots. There's Joker's blood being in your blood from the second game and you having all these crazy Joker hallucinations, which is a huge story element because there's so many sequences in this game where you have your enemies dead to rights, but then Batman starts hallucinating about Joker and then you just end up passing out, and then you have to find alternate means to save the day. So you've got that plot line going on. Basically, Batman trying to get rid of this Joker out of him. You've got Scarecrow trying to poison the whole damn city. And then Scarecrow's got 2 plots. Poisoning the city, which fails halfway through the game, and then trying to ruin Batman's identity and make him, not as effective as he once was. Okay? The Arkham Knight just wants to get revenge at Batman just for personal stuff that happened in his history. So the Arkham Knight teams up with Scarecrow because they kind of have that plot element. They have that in common, that they want to both kind of ruin the Batman's life. Just because of, Scarecrow just because he wants to spread terror, Arkham Knight personal reasons. So you've got that going on, and I just feel like there's just conflict between these three plots. The plot of the Arkham Knight and the personal beef he has with Batman, Scarecrow's plot line of trying to poison the city, and also Batman and, his plot with the Joker blood, him trying to stop himself from becoming this crazy Joker killer kind of person thing, like embodiment of the Joker, And I just feel like they don't agree. For whatever reason, I don't feel like the story, the plot lines, they don't converge appropriately for whatever reason. And I know the main theme of this game is Batman hanging up the cowl, him throwing in the towel and basically quitting his whole mantra, his whole, just what he's doing, saving the city and being a superhero. But the only problem is, it's just at the very end of the game, there's this giant, like, most of the end sequence of the game is dedicated to you hallucinating about Joker. And I won't spoil that sequence because it's a pretty unique one. Very different from any gameplay in the entire game. And it's basically a flash forward as to what could happen to Gotham if Batman was to become Joker, to turn into him. And it's a very interesting sequence, but it ends on a very weird note. Batman basically overcomes it psychologically and basically defeats the Joker in his own mind. And then it's like, okay, so once that happens, it's like, okay, I beat that, now it's on to, Scarecrow, who has me, locked up, and, oh, the Arkham Knight saved me. Like, it's just, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get, the point I'm trying to get across here, but the plot, like, it's just like, oh, finish one plot line, I'll move to the next. Like, I would have liked the plots to kind of intersect. And throughout the main portion of the game, the plots do intersect, and they do it pretty brilliantly. Like, there's the segment where Joker is telling, Bruce Wayne, he's holding a gun, but he's not really holding a gun, and then Scarecrow looks at Batman and says, something's different, you've changed. Like, Scarecrow directly realizes this kind of Jokerish side to Batman, and I liked that, because, everyone's kind of in sync about what's going on in the plot of this game. But it's not really addressed after that. Like, Scarecrow's like, oh, you're supposed to be afraid, and you're not afraid. Like, but it has nothing to do about Batman's psychology, what he's become. Like, I don't know. I thought Scarecrow was this tough, kind of ruthless individual, and Scarecrow's psyche that plot of Scarecrow's psyche would in some way relate to the psychological change that Batman was going through because of the Joker blood thing. And then somehow the Arkham Knight was connected, or is connected, to that in some form or fashion. Again, I know I rambled for about 10 minutes about the plot and just the problems I had. I'm sure people who have a better grasp on this story might be able to comment and tell me some things that I'm missing, or some things I said that were wrong. But I just wasn't that satisfied by the ending. Also, the fact that we didn't even get there was no final boss battle. There was no final boss against Scarecrow. The only final boss is if you get the extra downloadable content for this game on the PS4. There's a Scarecrow boss sequence where you're in the Batmobile shooting him. It's like a giant Scarecrow, and he's like throwing shit at you, and there's tanks. I would have been fine with that having been the final boss, as long as it fit in the plot of the story, but we didn't get one. Like, there was no final boss to this game, other than, the Arkham Knight boss battle, where all that is you take down a couple of his henchmen, grapple up to where he's sniping from, punch him a few times, and then, it's a very weird boss. Like, it's not like, I would have liked, like, a one-on-one fist fight. Like, how you and Joker have the one-on-one fist fight, and then his henchmen come in, and then the giant Titan comes in. Like, that was a cool fight, because you're fighting the fake Joker, but there's also waves and waves of guys jumping on top of you. And then Clayface, where you have to use Mr. Freeze's freeze thing to fight Clayface. That was also a great boss battle that tied into the finale with Joker of the second game. I would have liked something like that. Something like that I wish was in this game. And the only bosses were... Any boss sequence was contained to the Batmobile. Sorry, my voice is killing me. Talking for 30 minutes straight, but... That's the main problem that I have with this game in terms of the story, but I think it's forgivable considering the elements of this game that I highly enjoyed. The things that I don't like generally, the fact that you have to complete every single freaking Riddler challenge in order to unlock the final ending of the game. Like, I understand that Batman has to finish his work before either dying or throwing in the towel, but I just think it's kind of unnecessary. I think they should have spun it. Like, I wish freeing Catwoman meant that you could defeat Riddler. Like, there's that stupid sequence where you're fighting him in his mecha suit, which, that's a cool boss battle. You're fighting him in his mecha suit, and then he goes down, he's like, oh, you can't fight me, you're beneath me, you have to do all of my stupid Riddler challenges. And I'm just like, really? Like, I'm beneath you? Like, oh, stupid. But yeah, that, and then the fact that there are some gadgets in the games that are kind of irrelevant, and then the story, the plot, just towards the end, I was just kind of scratching my head about some of the decisions they made. So, but that's really it. I enjoyed the game. Alright, I really did enjoy the game. There were a few villains that were left out of the story, but you already had a lot of villains that were in this game. Some of them, a lot of them coming from the previous game, some of them were not in the previous game, and it was a nice change. I definitely enjoyed the, Scarecrow was a great villain, definitely different from the movie version of the Nolan films, and what I've known from him previous. This was a very insane Scarecrow, and the Arkham Knight, I liked the before you knew his identity, I liked the Arkham Knight as this kind of just this, almost like he was like another version of you, the Batman. The Arkham Knight was like the anti-Batman, and so it was like fighting him the whole game. And I really liked that because he was always one step ahead of you. He knew you so well. He was stacking the cards against you. Like, I liked that. But I just wish there was a bit more payoff at the end. Like, I'm building and building and building this whole time in the story, and then I get to the conclusion, I'm like, eh. I mean, the twist with Oracle and Joker's blood in Batman was cool, but I would have liked something more. Just, I don't know. I don't know what that more thing is, but that's just my feelings on the matter. So, that's it for my review. I know it went longer. I actually had to make 2 different videos just to squeeze everything in that I wanted to say. I'm going to give Batman Arkham Knight a 9 out of 10. I think it's a game you should absolutely play, but get it on a console, because I heard the PC version is having issues. So get it on the PS4, preferably, just because of, the graphical capabilities of the PS4. This game, again, with the graphics, looks amazing. Absolutely amazing, this game and the graphics. So, I'd highly suggest it. Rocksteady definitely went out with a bang. They've done good by this series. They've paid homage to the Batman, to the DC villains of the Batman universe. And this was a very creative story, and it was executed well. Unlike the Spider-Man games, where there's only like 1 or 2 Spider-Man games that are good. Web of Shadows and some of the stuff. Like, every single Batman game is really solid. I mean, I didn't play Origins. I know that was made by WB, like it was another studio that made Origins, but I didn't buy it just because, what is it, like a prequel to this? It's not directly, this is a trilogy. Like, the Arkham City, Knight, Asylum, that's the trilogy from Rocksteady. That's what I consider. So, and that's what I played. Well, other than Asylum, but, maybe one day I'll play that, but I'm not sure if I will, considering I just beat, the Batman saga, playing the final game, 2, 3, and then playing 1 would kind of seem weird, but I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, that's my review of Batman Arkham Knight. A fantastic release in 2015. I would say it's a Game of the Year contender, but there's so many games coming out this fall. There's gaming overload this fall. You know, Fallout 4, Just Cause 3, Star Wars Battlefront, Halo 5, Black Ops 3. I'm sure I missed 700 other games. All those games that I mentioned are games I want to buy. And they're all games I want to play. So this Christmas is going to be chaotic, because I'm going to be jumping from game to game to game, because like I'm going to want to try to play these games, you know, because nowadays I only buy games that I know I'll like 100%. Like, I didn't buy Evolve because I heard it didn't get great reviews. Haven't touched Assassin's Creed Unity from last year because I heard the game had major problems and the story wasn't really that great. And I'm very selective of the games that I play. I only buy games that I know I'll like. And because I loved Arkham City so much, that's why I went ahead and bought Arkham Knight. And so all the games that I mentioned are all games that I played the previous iterations, and I'm fans of the series, and I really like the gameplay elements that are in them. So that's why I'm deciding to play them. I just realized that my Xbox controller is cutting off a portion of the screen. So you've been seeing that the entire video. That's nice. Anyway, sorry about that. How many minutes is this video? 6? Holy shit. Alright, I've been talking for a while. I am wiped out. I'm going to get going here. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a great playthrough. At the time that I'm making this video, I still have a lot of videos from the playthrough to put up, so expect them later. This video is going to be directly after the entire playthrough is completed. I'll put them in a playlist, and then I think I'll take a bit of a break for channel stuff. It'll just be random videos with, you know, friends and other stuff that I do. Possibly I'll make a gaming update and talk more about this, but I was thinking of possibly doing some Fallout 3 nostalgia footage just to prepare for this fall for Fallout 4. I can't do a countdown to Fallout 4 just because I don't have the time to play, I don't have time to play 4 Fallout games back to back to back. Like, it's just, they're all RPGs and they'll take hours and hours and hours of my time, so I just don't have the time. So, yeah, so it is what it is, but I'll inform you guys as time goes on, alright? Things, especially when we hit August, I'm going to be making some very important vlogs on the channel to kind of give you guys a perspective of where the future is at for content. So, stay tuned. Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for the new content, the stuff that's going on during these coming weeks, and so on and so forth. So, alright, thanks guys for watching the review. I know it was long, but hopefully I covered all of I know there are some areas I probably missed, so feel free to comment and remind me, and I'll reply back to you. But I think I mainly hit the main points. I hit the plot, the new gameplay mechanics, the things I liked and didn't, and the fact that this is a conclusion to a great trilogy. So, alright, that's it for Batman. Thanks. See you guys later. That was a fail.